Welcome along to another episode of the show. Still has no name. Yusef is mildly discomforted by the fact that I haven't released the full versions of the podcast yet.
Pains me, but
And I'm just keeping them in open loops with all the clips on Instagram. Jonny Yusef from Propane Fitness. Had the pleasure of working with these guys back in 2000 and what did we say before? 17?
I think so.
2017-ish. Both, it's actually quite remarkable, to be honest. Yusef is a doctor. Jonny used to be an accountant, yeah?
Correct, yeah.
And they built Propane Fitness on the side of doing both of those things. They now have a series of products. They also help Fit Pros with their coaching business. And they do a really, really good job of it. And I think today this conversation could quite frankly go anyway. I think we'll touch on the state of the industry. I think we'll touch on some fun stuff and just see where we flow. So, welcome. Thanks for traveling from Newcastle.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You've treated us well, Chris. We've been coffeed and dined and all
Trained.
sorts. Trained.
Went to the gym.
We went to the most ridiculous gym that I've ever been to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The dumbbells went up to 130 kilograms
I just don't think anybody can move that.
to take
I've
it out
seen
of the
people
rack.
rowing them.
Really? Rowing it.
Yeah, literal rows.
Like holding the dumbbell steady and moving their body forward towards it.
Like, you know.
Really?
Yeah. Monsters.
Yeah.
It's literally heavier than me,
Yeah.
bundled into a tiny thing.
With a handle.
Yeah. All right, so where do we begin?
I mean, where do you normally begin?
I don't actually know. It just kind of flows. So basically, let's touch into a little bit of Propane, like what you do on the fitness side of things, and then we'll get into the coaching side of things. I think we'll spend a lot of time in that sphere. So when we started working together, you were mainly blogging. You had the podcast. You'd write articles. I remember Yusef had a Ramadan article that kind of went insane.
Yeah. Still does every year.
Every year.
Once a year.
Yeah, it was back in the day when you could rank on the first page of Google for hypertrophy, or protein, or something like that.
Yeah.
This was 2008, 2009 when we started writing. Not intended as a business, just intended as a way to get our thoughts down on paper, almost as like a public training blog. And the goal, really, looking back, we weren't aware of this at the time, it was synthesis. Taking chaotic information, our frustrations with the state of the online information and industry all being very conflicting, difficult to make sense of. We were like, let's just try and record our insights as we go along. And over time, that started to generate some organic inquiries from people asking, "Oh, can you help me with my training?" And we're like, okay, it's £7.99 for a training program. And someone's paid it. Yes, okay. Right, we need to write them a program. And so opened up Microsoft Word, Dan's program. Dan, if you're watching, you're a first client. And just wrote like Monday, okay, do some bicep curls, and Tuesday. And then since then, this was also back in the day where Facebook ads, you could put £5 into boosting a post and it would just get ridiculous reach.
20,000 impressions and so cheap.
So over that period, we started to branch out into other forms of content, started to formalize the coaching process, realized that charging $7.99 is not a sustainable business model. Podcast, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, made the mistake of just having greed and or like FOMO of trying to just do all the platforms at once and doing them all quite badly, spreading ourselves quite thinly. Discovered you. You helped us to really streamline things, turn our one-on-one coaching offer, which was really hit capacity very quickly. And then any new client that we wanted to take on would just mean an hour less sleep every night. And so we were just trying to pedal really hard, but running up against the physical limits of our bodies and not being able to coach many people. You introduced us into a group coaching model, which delimited the revenue from say $2,000 a month to about $10,000 a month. Allowed us to help more people, still get good results with clients, and we've taken a few twists and turns since then.
Yeah, which I'm sure we'll jump into.
good summary.
Yeah,
That's it.
That's it. No, we're done. That's it. 6 minutes. Thank you very much. You and now you've kind of productized a lot of what you do, and
so I think like the journey that it's always been this process of like, how do we, because you read like all the business books and you get business mentoring from various places, and there's always this thing of like, break this time for money relationship, right? That's what everyone speaks about. We started off completely just selling time and Word documents. And we've over time tried to move further and further towards, we feel like we've got all this information that we used to give away for free in blogs and podcasts and stuff. Like, what if we formalized it and it's material in a course people can buy and access and go through at their own pace? And so that's where the business is now, where like 90% of the fitness business is just like all of the packaged information. There's like, hundreds of hours.
Yeah, easily.
It's crazy, really, but we've accumulated that over a long period of time. Yeah, and that's now what we sell. And the synthesis of everything.
We were kind of chatting about this in the car loosely, and I think it's really important to piece this together, because even at coffee before, I think there is so much expectation in the industry as a coach or whatever to be like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 15 grand a month. But like you guys were making $2 grand a month with, spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much magic in like, what if you could just make an extra £1,000 a month and use spreadsheets? What if you could just be Google Sheets and a client? Like there's so much simplicity in that I think people can actually wrap their head around. And then that process from there is like, okay, like how do I take what I'm doing one-to-one in the moment, given value in a one-to-one environment, and then how do I capture that value and put it into a process? And that's leveraging one-to-one to group. And then it's going, okay, like all of the stuff that I packaged and fill the gaps in a group, how do I fill those gaps in a product and capture the IP? And like, I think that's just a journey for everyone. And it's such an important journey. Like you'll never figure anything out. I don't think you can do it in reverse is what I'm saying. Like I don't think you can create a product, group coaching program and go to one-to-one. And that's what most people try to do. I think use the one-to-one to figure out things and what works, what doesn't, real world feedback, then leverage the group, then package everything in a system that's watertight.
Yep.
Your client is your greatest teacher, and without going through the muck and learning by doing everything so manually to begin with, we wouldn't have figured out what are the best systems, what are the gold standard bit of information that we can turn into something which all those insights from a client, they go, right, now I get it. Okay, right, that makes sense. Packaging that and turning it into something which is then the gold standard, and then that does the work for you. It's kind of a horrible irony that in the last 10 years, the amount of tools that are available, the technology and all the bells and whistles and flashing lights and cool stuff that you can do is a distraction. And as you say, like you, a client, and Google Sheets.
That's all you need. Yeah.
That's the way to deliver the best value, and actually adding in more bloat doesn't help. It's just these kind of online PT tools, like some of them are fine, and I tend towards the more minimal ones that we recommend people use. But you're their client as a coach, as a trainer. You're their target market, not the people who you're helping. So they're going to make stuff that has all the fancy bells and whistles. Go, it's got this like RPE percentage based programming template, and it's got this feature, and I can send stock videos here. But does the client care? Because what they want is abs and a big deadlift, or to lose a bit of fat.
Like the last coach that I had, incredible coach, incredibly smart, like probably one of the best coaches, Luca Hosafar, like one of the best coaches that I know on the planet in terms of strength and conditioning and stuff. And like he literally sent me my program in an Evernote file, like
fine,
with instructions and YouTube links, like, and I was paying him a couple $100 a month. Like it's not. I think people overthink things massively, and I mean, I was here's an example. Like you figuring stuff out in the real world. Like so many of us want to feel successful before we'll ever, like we want to be successful before we'll ever feel successful. So we want to like, all right, when I get 10 clients, then I'll feel like an online coach, right? Instead of like, you've got to see yourself as a coach and actually figure it out as you're going along.
Yeah.
if you create from the certainty and the known, then you're creating from memories and historical habits and past. If you're creating from the unknown of like, fuck, let's take this client on and see what happens, like having the balls to actually do that. And remember when I worked with you guys, I was like, you might have even been, I'd helped people with online coaching businesses for sure, but I think you guys were like the first that had like something real, like exciting, like tangible. Most other people had an offline business that I was helping them build online. You guys had something that was like, I got really excited about, and I'm like, I can really help these people. And
it's what Jonny describes as like an artisan Italian coffee in like a crap, dirty paper cup. Like we just completely fucked it on the delivery.
Yeah.
We had a really good core product and offering, and we knew we could offer the value, but the production quality was terrible. The way that we packaged it to people was really bad, and certainly you helped us to streamline that and actually get that coffee into a nicer like artisan mug that that was made of porcelain. And
I remember, I was like, I know I can help these people, yet I don't have a body of like, you might not even know this, but like at the time I didn't have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 clients with online coaching businesses with your background. But I'm like, I know it can help them. Like there's very clear things. So it was almost like figuring it out with you at the time and like making things work and being in the trenches with you and like, what if we try this? What if we do this? What if we do this? What if we do that? And I think that's like a little bit of magic that you've got to do with your clients. Like don't create all of these systems. Don't create all of this information. Like jump in the trenches with them, give them little bits to figure out. And then you go, okay, that worked. That didn't work. That worked.
It's the difference between being a guru and, you know, to the top of the mountain with all the answers versus being a collaborator and saying like, right, we've got this problem. Let's see how we can test and solve this together.
And you two are tremendous in that way of like implementation. Like I'd be like, let's do this. And you do it.
Done.
Yeah. Very quick.
Yeah. I think we've always been like that. Like there's something I never understand of like sometimes we get with our business coaching. Sometimes people will say like, oh, I want to sign up, but I want to sign up like when I go back from holiday. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like we buy stuff all the time. Like before I go on holiday and I like demolish it on the plane on the way over.
Yep.
And like I think we've both just got this. If we get access to information, like the only thing remaining is throw yourself at it and make because then it's like we can blame the coach.
Yeah.
Like then it's not our fault, it's the coach's fault.
Yeah.
So if you can get to that place, then it's the guessing is like which person do I listen to or like what direction do I go in and then go 100% in that direction. And then you're like, well, if it doesn't work, at least I gave it the best shot.
And I will say like, albeit that there are things that I see online I don't agree with, like the majority of people, like I have a very hard time when people are like, oh, I got burned by this person. Like, because there is value in everything. And not, you know, they wouldn't be selling at scale if it was terrible, albeit that's nuanced. But the majority of things have value if you actually just fucking do what they say. Then it just comes to, does this align with my values and does this make me feel good, this process? Like,
there's a few kind of generational or attitudinal deficits that people have, which is, like seeing people, demonizing people and being like, oh, I got burned or it was rubbish just because you didn't like a certain part of it, but there's still valuable, as you say. There's looking for the shiny object. There's delaying the start until, there'll be a perfect time on Monday or after my holiday or after I do this that I'll be able to start in the magical land of the future where my calendar is totally empty and I've just got
loads
no
of money,
commitments.
Loads of time, loads of headspace.
And then there's the other thing you mentioned of like people not wanting to eat the shit for several years and do the manual, boring, hard stuff. Like, yes, you can absolutely accelerate it, especially now that there's people you can hire to save you that time. But you got to go through a lot of that manual stuff first. And everyone wants to be, it seems, I don't know, we were talking about TikTok before, like everyone likes to kind of label themselves as like founder, CEO, chief exec, whatever, like, because they love the title, but not willing to just do the boring stuff. And it's almost made employee a bad word.
Yeah, it's today's marketplace, definitely.
It's a slur.
Like,
and
it's like it's almost a step instead of a thing.
Yeah. I think the only thing I disagree with on like there's value in everything, I think that's right as long as there's definitely, and I think we've all seen this, like people who their first business is teaching people how to start a business that they're starting. And like, especially in fitness, because I know you were saying you didn't have necessarily online clients at the time. You were working with a lot of people in the fitness industry. You had a lot of fitness industry experience yourself.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot to say for like selling and running like a B2B offer or like coach to coach offer
Yes.
is different
Massively. I
to
agree
selling
with that,
to a consumer.
Yeah.
And I think like we'll see a coach comes out, they've got no evidence of their background in the fitness industry, but they're selling like, here's how to get clients. And the funnel they're teaching is like more or less a business to business
Yep.
setup. You're like someone who is sat on a Friday night who's just had a takeaway pizza that they weren't planning to have. They feel shit about themselves. Like they don't necessarily need to go through like a 3-step webinar, tripwire. Like
Yeah.
that's just, it functions differently.
And then
Very
drop
different,
$5,000 for a fat
Exactly.
loss
And
program.
like jump on like a 2-step sales call with a credit card at the end and it's 5K or, you know,
Yeah.
it is just, that's exaggerated obviously, but there's differences I think in how the business has to end up looking.
But like everything's
Long
high
term.
ticket, right? Like everything has to be high ticket, does it?
Yeah. well,
Really? Like I don't believe it does.
No.
Like
Yeah.
I have a really hard time with anyone selling high ticket B2C coaching unless it's something severe and serious.
It's a bubble.
So it has to be so unique and such a painful problem for it
Exactly.
to justify that. And
But-
yeah, I agree, it's a bubble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at some point, someone's going to realize, like, oh, hang on, like a fat loss plan shouldn't cost £5,000, and I don't need to pay that amount to, like, yeah, of course, you're going to find occasional big spenders who will just blurt unnecessary amounts of cash on things, but it's going to, especially now that everyone's chasing the high ticket
It's
thing as
wild.
well.
It's just like market average price. So like James Smith sells, I don't know what his app is, but like £10-ish a month, right?
Yep.
And he's on TV, best-selling book deals
Yep. So why would somebody choose you,
Exactly.
obscure 300 followers on Instagram?
because your marketing's aggressive.
Yeah, and you
Like-
sell it. Yeah. I have a like, I think, I don't know if I've really spoke to you guys about this back in the time, but I think you might have tried high ticket stuff for a period.
Did, yeah.
Pre working with me.
Yeah, yeah. It was
And I'm
awful.
like, I'd rather have something that was easy to sell, 10 to 15 minute conversations, that was valuable, that you can do at scale, that the majority of people can buy, that actually makes you feel good afterwards.
You don't need to have a shower afterwards and like, oh, I feel a bit.
Yeah. I actually don't think that people who are doing, I'd imagine there are people who will watch this with the high ticket stuff, and the majority of people I speak to who have done that, like they can sell it a handful of times, but if they have any integrity about themselves, eventually that gets the better of them. And they'll gradually begin to like,
walk it down.
yeah, exactly. And I think it depends what you deem as high ticket. I think like $1,500, $2,000 for a 16-week program of like really intense coaching, I think is reasonable. I think you start getting to 3, 4, 5, 6, it becomes
For
obscure.
a 16-week program, like you divide that monthly, it's actually mid-ticket, really.
Yeah, it's like personal training, right? Like the way
Yeah.
that I see it, if you seen a personal trainer 3 times a week, 40 quid an hour, it's 120, it's like 500 quid a month for 3 months. You know, 1,500 quid is,
Because people make decisions like that. Like they're not idiots. Like they look at it and go, well, I have a problem, which is I want to lose weight for
Yeah.
holiday. What could I buy to help me with that?
exactly.
And like, I think the red flag, because we people will see us talk about this and they'll message us and say like, but I have a high ticket offer and it works. It's like, I'm not saying you can't sell. I'm not saying you can't like get the money off someone. You can. But the red flags are like, if you're having like business to consumer, like how many business to consumer, big business to consumer businesses use and 100% rely on sales calls and closing over the phone? Like not many these
at all.
days.
Nope.
Like maybe in like the 80s and 90s that happened, but these days it's like one click order, pay with your face,
Yep.
right? So like that's what people are used to. So if you're having to add this, if you're having to add like aggressive pushy tactics, that is a sign that something's not quite like aligned there.
I agree.
Like people are being manipulated into the sale rather than like, I really want to buy this. And that I just think that has a shelf life.
And what the big problem that I have with this, it sounds like we're bitching a lot about this, but like I just think it's awareness, right? And having done this for a long time, I think there's a massive miscommunication of what it actually takes to make a high ticket sale. Like you'll see guru screenshots and you see the results. You don't see the 30 sales calls that went to get the 3K sales.
Yeah,
and the lack of repeat customers because
Well, yeah. Once you've sold something for 3K to someone in the fitness industry, like what else is there to sell? Like you can't. Like they're not going to spend another 3K.
well, exactly.
well, there's the fact that when someone, you know, as you say, even if they lack the integrity, even if we take the psychopath's approach, the longevity in the business isn't there. Like someone drops 3K on a program, suddenly you've got to then deliver on that much value for a £3,000 program. No one's able to do that. Client doesn't sign up again. Maybe they sign up maybe they ask for a refund because they've been pulled over the line and they've had their nipples twisted on the call and
or they've gone for coffee with a friend and they've gone, what? How much?
Yeah. like you tell the partner in the morning, you're like, what, $3,000 on a, and then
2 Louis bags for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Get a lot for $3,000. But yeah, it, like you say, it sounds like we're bitching. It's just, I think,
it's just awareness, and I think it's talking about what is actually happening. And I think it's always been my opinion, right? And I say this to clients a lot with gyms. Yes, you could charge more, but how long does that customer stay?
Yeah.
And I have this battle continuously with clients. So like we typically structure every business the same. We have something that introduces people to what you do, and you have something that's continuity based. So it's a front end offer, a back end offer. And people always want to sell the front end thing for as much as they physically can. So I'm like, the front end thing needs to be priced high enough so that your continuation offer is deemed more valuable.
Yeah.
So I typically go like, if you're selling a monthly thing at 75 quid a month, sell your front end thing at minimum of 100 or equivalent of pro-rated 75 quid a month plus some.
Yeah.
Right? Because then it's a step down from the first transaction, makes it easier to sell. Then it just comes to like, how many customers can I get? At what, at what cost? If I can get 3 times ad spend, I don't care about the cheapest leads in the world. There is a thing right now, like going around in the industry where it's like, oh, get cheap leads. I don't care about that. I'm like, if you can make 10 grand and spend 2.5 grand on ads, like, and you bring in 40 customers, those 40 customers will piss away your ad spend easily in continuity every month.
Yeah.
So it becomes front end volume.
And if they're enjoying it, they'll refer a friend.
Exactly.
They'll create a snowball.
They become worth more than the price. I think like testimonials before and afters, they refer 3 friends. Those friends refer 3 friends. And suddenly it was like, well, that cost me 500 quid to get that customer. And
there are so many things, right? Like so many factors. Like we look at platforms, maturity of platforms, like Facebook ads, more difficult now than they've ever been, more competitive now than they've ever been. And we have to really look at, if you can sell something at $250 a month, great. What's the lifetime customer value? If they're staying 3 months or 4 months and they're dropping off, then you have to replenish your entire business every 4 months.
Yeah.
If you can keep a customer for 12, 14, 15 months or 10 months on average is what we'd say to people, and they pay $75 a month, you're actually bringing in the same revenue as you would with the 250 client. Arguably, in my opinion, you have less delivery stress with that. You have more longevity and likely more scalability because more people are able to afford, like, not afford it, but more people are able to justify paying that over a longer period of time for something as commoditized as fitness.
Yeah. We used to have this thing that happened to us every bank holiday Monday when we were like trying to up out. It's when we were doing like the high ticket stuff. We were like doing like split pays of, you do like a 996, it had to end in a 7. And it ideally had to be 997, otherwise it doesn't work. So we were splitting it out into like monthly stuff sometimes. And every bank holiday Monday, these like high ticket recurring people would cancel. You're like, what? Like, what's going on? And like, obviously bank holiday Mondays is when people have an extra day. They sit and go through their finances and go like, God, I'm spending a fortune on that coach. And then you find out that like, actually, if I drop that down to like 100 quid a month. Because this is when we're doing the group stuff, so there's tons of scalability. If it's 100 quid a month, they like don't even notice. Or they notice less. And it's not like we're trying to sneak it past them, right? But they look at it and they go, actually, I'm getting a lot for that. Like if I go somewhere else, if I go and get a PT or I go and do classes, I'm going to be spending at least that anyway. So you know what, I'll just stay.
And like, I think if you look at the way that you buy to see how you should sell, that's always a really helpful heuristic. And there's definitely a threshold below which I don't really have to like reconsider every month. It's just a background monthly cost. If something's over 200, 300, 400 pounds a month, then each month I'm like, oh, do I want to really continue that? Because it's significant.
Sizable. Unless it's software, then I'm just fucking ignoring it.
Why is it that software pricing actually, in fairness to Silicon Valley and SaaS businesses, they nail it with the pricing. Like
it's like they know what they're doing.
It's almost as if they've got loads of data and they've somehow algorithmically tested what they should price their services at. And then you got the little switch at the top, the toggle for monthly versus I save 2 months if I go for the annual. Oh,
You're
right, fine.
You love annual stuff.
Oh, I do.
I hate annual stuff.
Well, actually, like when you say, I know we're a little off topic, but you're saying about how you buy is how you sell. The majority of people don't pay in full for a car or a house, right? They pay in what?
Like
Monthly payments.
Yeah.
So most people don't justify the value of the, like if you're selling a program and it's, £1,000 as an example, most people aren't going to think of it as £1,000. They're going to think, what do I have to pay per month?
Yeah.
So there are a number of ways in which you can alter value propositions. Like I used to call this, I had this strategy called time warp profits, right? And basically, if somebody was selling something, £1,000 for 90 days, and they wanted to create more revenue for the business, well, if they were doing a 3-pay, 333, well, why not just sell a 6-month program and sell 6 times 333? Because people only justify the sale based on the outlay today.
Yeah.
And
Like,
so
what's
you're
it cost
instantly
to sell?
doubling your profitability by just stretching the time.
Yeah.
And one of our clients, she sells 12-month programs for $2,000. And she largely does it paid in full. She'll do over 40 grand this month.
So
And that's another example of time or profits. Like she's just expanding the offering and actually giving people a solution to what they actually need, as opposed to going, I just have to do a 6-week thing because that's what everyone else does. Or I have to do an 8-week thing because that's what everyone else does.
Yeah. There's a, when we do like the business presentations and like show people like how, like, I guess what we teach on the business side, to try and like illustrate this point to people, I share like on Stripe, you've got like customer lifetime value and like top 100 customers and all that sort of stuff. People who are paying, who pay like 100 to 200 a month are near the top of that leaderboard, like thousands and thousands, like 5-6 grand lifetime value.
Yep.
And everyone's so focused on, but today I only get this.
Yep.
It's like, well, like if the goal is I want to build a business that in a year and a half's time doesn't exist anymore, that's a great strategy.
Yep.
But like, it's not about like how much money can I make this year. It's how much like the business is going to exist for a decade, 2 decades. So build it that way.
It's the other
Like,
thing to look out for, isn't it? Like on the testimonials of people who push the kind of high ticket stuff, and they'll have people go, I made 20 grand this month.
Why are they still not working with you, dude?
Yeah, that's it.
Was it 20 grand in that month?
Yeah.
I mean, you made 20 grand of upfront sales this month, but you're going to have to now deliver on for the next 6 months, and you're also not going to be able to make those same sales next month because you've already bloated your load.
If you could buy a business, right, that every single month started from scratch and was making 30 grand a month, or you could buy a business that had 20 grand a month recurring income, which has more value?
Yeah. It's easy, isn't it?
Like that 30 grand disappears every month. That 20 grand is going in, and it might drop to 19 or it might drop to 18.5. But like at that point, you at least have like, I've got something to fix.
Yeah.
I have customers. You don't have customers. Like if you have a high ticket business that starts at 0 every month, it's very stressful. Like month in, month out, having to replace that.
Yeah,
if it's a grind.
Take the financials out of it. You want to have the most impact. You want to be utilitarian about it and help the most people possible. If your metric, if you change your KPI to some weird thing of like number of pounds of fat lost that I can create, or number of pounds of muscle gained, then a lower ticket recurring offer that gets people results long term, rather than working with 3 whale clients who you
might not renew.
The simplest thing in the world, right? Like every business is built this way. And I almost like punch myself in the face every time I remind this, because I just like forget it myself, but give it advice to other people. It's like, you've got front end and back end. Like use your front end revenue to fuel your back end recurring income. And like if you spend 5 grand a month every month on ads and you bring in 5 grand in revenue, yet you get 30 customers and 20 of those customers pay you 100 quid a month, they stay for 10 months. You've got 200 clients 10 months from now. That's 20 grand a month by not profiting on your ads.
Yeah.
By actually self-liquidating that ad spend. And like you can never lose on any platform doing that. Because that mentality is like that mentality deploys to every platform possible. I'm willing to spend 100% of the sale to get a customer to then have them repeat with me month in, month out.
And you get an email list for free.
Exactly.
A massive email list for free.
Massive email list.
Yeah. Which is like, I don't know, whatever that stat is, like $1 for every email per month for every email subscriber. Like that's an asset that you're just building and building and building in the
Or
background all
like
the time.
most people just never email it.
Well,
You
all
could
this,
do
all
that.
this that you can do that too. Yeah, it's a good
But that'd be
strategy.
dumb.
That would be dumb. Yeah, but yeah, surprised that we agree on all of this. You would have thought that it's weird, isn't it? That
What you mean, like good human values, and
Well, yeah.
solid principles of business?
The people who have been in business for 10 years or so agree on the same.
We were talking about this on the
Principles,
train down. Actually, this is something we didn't talk about before the podcast. This is fresh content.
Fresh?
Yeah.
Nice.
We were saying that, like, I think there's something that when you see, because our feed is like full of business gurus, and I'm sure yours is too,
Mine
right?
too.
I think it was you were saying, like, what some people come across of, like, they really seem to know what they're talking about. And some people it feels like they don't. Mm-hmm. And there's this, like, hard to put your finger on. But I think the thing that separates them is just, like, time under tension, like time in the industry. Like, having experience in fitness for a long time, you just see things, like, you see patterns come and go, you see trends come and go, strategies come and go. And you're like, oh, the things that remain are just, like you're saying, like front end, back end, break even on your ad spend, build an email list. Like, that's always going to be there.
Yeah.
So you were talking about this before in the context of speaking. So we've got synthesis and crystallized intelligence. And when you hear someone talk about something that they clearly, what you're seeing is the tip of an iceberg that is massive and they're drawing on years of experience. It's different to if someone is talking about a subject and they are talking about the absolute extent of their knowledge on that thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was Franklin or Roosevelt, I'm not sure which one now.
Which deceased president?
Yeah, some American deceased president who said, if you want me to speak for a speaking engagement and you want me to speak for an hour, and you want me to speak for 10 minutes, I can give me 2 weeks to prepare. If you want me to speak for half an hour, give me a week. If you want me to speak for an hour, I can do it right away. And it was what you were saying before about brevity is actually really hard, editing down, because it requires you to really polish what you're expressing and to get rid of all the fluff and crystallize all that knowledge into something that is
60
actionable.
seconds.
And the only way you can do that is through actually being in it for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's like coming up to my 10th year coaching Fit Pros this year,
That's mad.
which is actually wild. Like when I actually,
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck have I been doing? I feel like I should have been doing way more, but there is a distinct difference, like you said, between actually the business to consumer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I spent, I don't even want to say this, $26,000 on a course.
Nice.
Um,
Cheap and cheerful.
2020, and did this nothing with it. Like,
really
it was
wanna-
just before
I
my
really wanna
personal
know
life
whose
blew
course
up.
it was. Business course.
Yeah.
Why didn't you do anything with it?
Like my personal life just blew up before that.
Okay.
So like,
So you've still got access?
no, got canned.
Man.
Oh, Chris.
So
They won't let you back in or anything.
no, like they extended a month.
That's brutal.
So, but I can like hand on heart say that I've probably invested $100,000 at least in similar experiences. Well, the reason I didn't do anything partly was because my personal life. Partly I logged in. I'm like, it's just the same thing that everybody else is. And there's like, there is a piece of me that thinks, well, if everyone is saying it, then it must be true. But it's also just regurgitated stuff that's just cloned. And I'm like, I've already done that to the nth degree and it doesn't work. I know it doesn't.
Something I admire about you, Chris, is you've got a very loose anus with just like...
That's a metaphor. That was a
yeah, metaphor. With just like investing in yourself. You're just
Yeah.
like, I'll get a $4,000 camera, or I'll buy this 26 grand course. Like, yes, fine, you didn't do anything with that one, but it's I think the attitude of like, because people are really weirdly stingy about like, oh no, I couldn't possibly spend on education, or meanwhile, what's more costly is spending the time trying to figure it out on your own. And
Missed opportunity.
yeah, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but how much does a university degree cost? You know, and then it's accumulating interest at 6.1 and now 9.1% interest above a certain balance for the rest of your life. And the ROI is really mixed. Like the evidence now on salary improvement from a university degree is pretty murky. It's only specific degrees which have some kind of measurable return on salary. And yet alternative education, because of free market forces and because it's not led by this kind of now slightly dodgy institution of the universities in general, means that it's all there, now we're bottlenecked by implementation.
And I think, and I think also there's another thing. I was chatting to my mum about this. She went back to uni to do a law degree. Like, she's how old now? 55, 56. And we were having this discussion, and I can't remember what the specific topic was, but I was like, where are the best lawyers in the world? They're not fucking teaching law. Like, they're in the battle. And my mum was like, well, actually, I go to Durham and they do have some of the best lawyers in the world. And I'm like, well, listen, but the people that are dealing with the most high profile court cases.
Like how much would you have to pay them?
They are in the real world, in the trenches. Same with the business things. Like, the best entrepreneurs on the planet are not teaching business at university or economics.
Yeah.
The world is moving so fast that the curriculums in university could never keep up with the speed of the marketplace. I create a course, and I'm almost having to, it's like the fucking Golden Gate Bridge. Like, by the end you get to it, you're like, fuck, I've already got to change that.
I know. Yeah, it already, I think Facebook have come out and said that like any course you buy on Facebook, by the time it's finished being made, will not be relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
it's almost by design.
Guys. Yeah, I know. Well, they don't need to move buttons and dashboards. But that's what they want to do. But yeah, like I did economics degree, accountancy qualification, came out of that, thought, I'm set. Like I'll business easy. I know how to run a business. Knew nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I can look at a set of accounts and make sense of it, but like that's last year. By the time they're in company's house, it's irrelevant.
Yep.
You don't like wake up and go, oh, my cash balance a year and a half ago, bob on.
Tremendous.
Like I still got to make payroll today. So, and you know, like that's the day to day. Like, how do you get someone to trust you, transfer you money, generate revenue, run the systems and build something that's going to last? I just think you either learn from someone who is doing it or has done it, or you figure it out yourself. Those are really the only two options. I think like there's no degree that is going to help you.
Well, I did a degree in business, and it was great for the business of the university. It lined their pockets with, you know.
How many degrees have you done, Yusef?
That one and then medicine. So, that was
You learned about queues and stuff, didn't you? Queuing theory.
Yeah, I did a module in entrepreneurship, and it was not what it cracked up to be. It was like history of entrepreneurship in the 1930s in America. Like, completely irrelevant for... Like, of course, if you sign up for a module in that, you're going to want to know, like, please teach me the basics of running a small business. No, we'll
someone
teach
who isn't running a small business.
Yeah.
Usually.
I just think there's like, it's so cliche in the sense of, but I just think somebody who is like driven by business and entrepreneurship, they typically just want to go and do it. I don't think, you're actually both quite unique in the sense of being business owners, because you've got the degrees and the backgrounds that you have is quite...
It's
not
unusual.
unusual
Combination.
Like... But I think typical entrepreneurs are like rule breakers, don't want to follow instructions. They don't want to like listen to, like, I have a really hard time respecting certain authoritarian stances. Like, I've had counselors and therapists before, and I'm like, really? Like, I actually have more knowledge than you, having worked with thousands of people at this point. Like, and it sounds egotistical, but I'm like, you're projecting at me. Like, what? Like, you're not cleaning yourself. Like, you're actually not even listening to me.
Yeah. You're just like going through the motions of like what you were taught in the course that you did.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, if you start looking at the world in a more and more critical way, and you're like, actually, if a rule is stupid, why should I follow it?
Yeah.
Then it becomes, and that can be problematic if you...
I think it's curiosity, isn't it? Like...
Yeah, it's like, okay, I need to enter the restaurant, put on a mask until I sit down at that table, and then I take it off because that's where the airborne virus stops. And then I put it on again when I go to pay. Whoops. Like...
I thought you'd had years of podcasting experience.
No, it's the mic.
Terrible.
It's the sort of thing he'd shout at me for. Like,
don't hit the microphone.
Like, I'm sat sort of like miles away from...
Johnny's got a trauma response. Yeah. Frozen.
Yeah.
But I think on the university thing, like, yes, it's an unusual combination. I think it's not something I would recommend to most people. A university degree really is a signal to an employer saying, hey, I can sit on my bum for 4 years and do some
I have a
work,
degree as well.
but it's not helpful in terms of further stuff. But I do think the skill of being able to sit on your ass and do a thing that's hard for a long time is actually a very
That's
good
the
meta
benefit,
skill.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like being able to follow a system and be like, right,
I think
I'm gonna
obviously I did a degree as well, and like very much in my upbringing, it was like that. My sister didn't go to uni or college. Sister's actually like really, really successful in her career, dressage. She breeds horses, rides horses, backs horses, competes. She competed at GB when she was younger.
nice.
And I can remember distinctly being like, what, you're not going to college? She was like, no. I'm like, are you fucking out of your mind? Like,
But we this is a generational thing. Like we're all in our early 30s and we're just in the age where a university degree did mean something, especially to our parents, because it was actually a leg up.
Yep.
And obviously the institution has cottoned onto that. And so more and more unis have set up and creating kind of bullshit degrees and titles, but still charging the same fees because they know that they can get in on this gold rush while it's still there. And I think in 10 years' time, the data will start to become so unequivocal that unless you do dentistry, unless you do medicine, unless you do engineering, that
the legal,
Like something with a job at the end of it, like defined. As
like you need need that
For
badge
safety.
to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you don't do English and then become a doctor, do you?
I don't know about you guys though, but if I have a problem in my life, I just want to go and get that information through any means possible. I don't want to have to prove that I'm qualified to get that information. And I just think we're in a place in time now where information is just so accessible. And I think you put two people parallel, somebody following a university curriculum and say something like marketing, right? And then you put somebody in the field of doing marketing every single day, they will figure it out quicker than they could be taught it.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
well, so Johnny's really good at this, and he's not going to blow his own trumpet about it. But the difference between just-in-case learning and just-in-time learning, and I suppose for the people listening to clarify what that means is sitting, like, I want to learn about marketing. Okay, let me go to the library. I'm going to get a marketing textbook, and I'm going to start at the beginning and read through, right, principles of marketing, consumer behavior, blah, blah, blah. Just-in-time learning, I'm going to go and actually try and sell a product. Right, I'm getting lots of leads, but I'm not converting. What's going on there? Okay, let me go and find a book to solve that particular bottleneck in my process. And then I'm going to go immediately, as soon as I find an insight or an actionable thing in that book, I'm going to go and implement again.
Yep.
Jonny very much sees information in books, I think, as what problem am I trying to solve? And then as soon as I get that,
Solve it.
Go and do it. Whereas I think,
learn, do.
I spent far too long just mindlessly accumulating information and notes and not doing
YouTube
anything with
links.
it. Yeah,
I just think you retain it more. Like the books that I remember reading are the ones where I'm like, shit, like this, we're having this problem in business. I need to fix it.
Yep.
And who knows about that? These people read those books, got the answer, do it, and you're like, I understand why that works, and now I've learned what I needed to learn.
Benefit of it, yeah. I think as well, like I used to be like a cover to cover reader, and like I'm very much like would do that through commitment. Like, I couldn't really start it without finishing it. Now, I was reading a book on email marketing the other day. Like, it's in my car. I can't remember what it's called. Literally read one page, and I'm like, got everything I need. I'm going to send an email.
Nice.
Done.
Yeah.
It was just.
what a shift.
Yeah, just like, that there's a gap, go and find that gap, and whatever you figure out, do it very quickly, and don't just accumulate mindless information. Just because you start a book doesn't mean you got to finish it. If you start in a book and it's shocking and it's not giving you what you need, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Be very intentional around your learning. I think there was I can't remember the guy, but he was a table tennis coach. There's actually a book on, I can't remember what it's called. He was talking about practice being intentional, and that's the most important thing. Like intentional practice is the biggest factor in improvement in skill.
It's not the 10,000 hours, it's 10,000 good hours.
Intentional
proper
practice.
hours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Bounce, it could be that, yeah. That's it.
It's like being on Joe
Nice.
Rogan podcast.
Yeah,
There we
good
go.
spot.
Can we call up anything that happened on that screen?
Yeah, that is the book.
there was this gay porn thing.
And you said he was going to get it in.
We said before the podcast we would have to try and slip in gay porn somehow.
Mentioning it.
Yeah.
Slip in even the words.
Yeah, don't worry if you're watching this on YouTube or something. It's still going to stay clean.
It's explicit now. That's it.
The thing with books as well is that it can become a vanity metric.
Yeah.
It feels productive to read more. It's something people seem to love, like a weird flex about like how many books they've read this
It's
year.
the flex like that.
Well, it's the same, and it's like, and you're like, hang on, what's the point in reading? Nowadays, I would rather go back and read one of the books that really had a major impact on my life and reread it and try and assimilate what's the lesson from it and how can I.
It's like someone bragging about like, I spent like 100 hours in the gym this quarter. It's like, why do you still look like that?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I used to buy books and think that I'd read them just by osmosis of purchase. Yeah.
Like hold it, smell it.
Did I read that book or not? I can't really remember.
When you have the book as well, you think, that's a big one. I'm going to have to like, and you put off reading it because you think you have to read it cover to cover, as you say. And so
it's very relevant to what Jonny was saying about meditation being like really hard. It's really beneficial, but really hard to actually sit there for 20 minutes a day. And it's the same with a book, like Robert Greene's books, incredible. But I don't think I've ever read one cover to cover because it's just so intimidating.
Encyclopedic, yeah.
And I just think there's magic in, of course, sitting there and doing something with presence for an extended period of time, of course. But there's also magic in being, okay, I'm going to read 3 pages and I've got what I need today to go and be inspired.
Yeah.
And I think I read now to be inspired as opposed to gather information. And honestly, there's some audios on like YouTube or like lectures that I've listened to, no shit, like 50 times in a row. Like I don't listen to anything else because I'm like, I need to know this thing. It needs to go in my brain and be embedded. And I'd rather do that than change the thing that I listen to every day.
Well, because hearing a lesson, I guess it's the same as having the book and thinking you read it. Hearing a lesson and being like, okay, I'm familiar with that idea now, I don't need to. But actually, sometimes that is something you need 50 times to drill and actually go and do it and practice it.
But I think this is what you were saying of like, there's so much information. The problem is like, which bits of information do you pay attention to?
Yeah.
And actually, like if you pick the wrong information, that might be a year of your life.
Yeah, it's deadly.
Gone.
Yeah.
And that it might even be a year of your life moving backwards.
That's even hiring the wrong coach.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same thing.
It's like the ladder analogy, isn't it? Of like you spend your life climbing a ladder, it's against the wrong wall.
Yep.
And you only realize when you're like, fuck's sake, again. Like need a new ladder again. But like we talk about this a lot on our podcast of like, how do you make that decision better? So what we were saying before of like, if you, whatever you pick, 100% at it, get as much as you can out of it. But if you do that with the wrong stuff,
Yep.
you're moving really quickly in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Aggressively throwing all of your life into the wrong direction.
I think how I've personally made decisions around that stuff in the past is like I've been a periphery observer for a period of time.
Then you jump in
and then I'll sit on the periphery and I'll accumulate stuff or I'll listen to someone and then I'll just bypass the process and go direct to the person and then I'll buy.
Right.
So like if I wanted to hire somebody, I'm more likely and more inclined to like consume a little bit of their stuff and like get a bit of their vibe and then just go direct to them.
Yeah, I think that's our buying pattern as well. Like we don't need to be romanced because we kind of look at the stuff and we go, right, I've sold myself on it. I'm just going to
buy that.
Yeah, full price, buy now, please.
This is where, in my opinion, a lot of like marketing automation kind of neglects. Because I look at webinars, right? And I don't think I've ever sat through a 90-minute webinar yet. I've spent a fuck ton of money on coaching, right? And so then I consider this. I'm like, okay, like I have made buying decisions without going through that webinar. So there are many people like me, and the people who actually aren't like me are doing the opposite of me.
That's a good point. And then
which are actually consuming the information, going through the process, and not actually buying. The buyers actually will bypass the process and go straight to the purchase.
The coach might think that you've bought because of the webinar.
Yeah, there's a gap in there, and I think actually the people who register for your webinar based on the hook and don't show up are as likely, if not more likely, to buy than the people who sit through the whole thing.
I think the way, because we use webinars, and I think the way I try and look at it, because we have the same problem. Like I've never watched a webinar.
Yep.
Yeah, we run webinars. So like, what's up with that? But like, I still think
I've
there's...
watched a webinar.
Have you? Well done. You're the only one. Have you really?
Yeah, it was Ben Pakulski's the other day.
Well, there you go. Is it
It's
good?
good. It was all right, yeah.
You buy anything?
No.
So proven.
One
yeah.
person, people who watch webinars never buy anything.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, I think there's like this like 5% of people who do.
Yeah.
I think there's people who they're scrolling through social media, they're watching a video on YouTube, they see an ad, they watch it.
Yep.
They're like looking for the solution. And it's back to what we were saying before. Like if that breaks even on your ad spend, you're letting all the other like really interested people in.
Yep,
And I
exactly.
think that something that Paul Mort did to us, which was like annoying at the time.
Did to you, or?
Did to, well, no, like we consented, it was all right. But we had this funnel set up, which was like, we had an article which pissed off a ton of people in the fitness industry, which is about, you might remember it, like it's about Haribo and cheesecake and Pringles and how we got lean with that. And the funnel was like ads to that, retarget to an opt-in, to a front-end offer and all that stuff. And Paul had seen the article, DM'd me, and he was like, I want fitness coaching. I'm like, I can help you with that. What you need to do is you need to go into this page and then opt in. He's like, no.
Did we set that up?
We set up
we
like
worked
variations of it,
together,
yeah. 'Cause
yeah.
I mean, it was like
So many
a
things we did.
jigsaw, yeah.
Yeah.
But so this version running, Paul saw it, DM'd me, was like, I just want, just how much are you coaching? I was like, well, our group thing's this. He's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yep.
How can I help you, Paul? And he's like, I just want full access to you. I want like calls with you. And we ended up having like this bespoke package where he worked with both of us. But there's an example of like, he'd sort of...
Excuse me, can I speak to the manager? I want
I want the
please.
best package.
That's why I actually love articles for this reason.
Because you can like be aware of someone and then buy when you're ready.
Andre Chaperon, great friend of mine, mutual friend, Paul's, had him at my event.
Quite good at emails, isn't he? Sends a couple of emails.
Yeah. 2018 or 2019, it was like the last event that I ran abroad before lockdown.
Oh shit, right.
And it was in Spain, and he came and he spoke to our guys for like
That's cool.
2-3 hours. And he was just saying he's a ultra geek when it comes to writing. And he was just saying, like, with a video is all well and good and a presentation's great, but like it's very hard to embed like concentrated ideas into people's minds with a video. Whereas like when somebody actually reads something and it's like a slap in the face, like it's very hard not to comprehend that.
Yeah.
Self-paced. With a video, it's just steamrolling along in
Well,
time,
a
isn't
webinar
it?
is very easy to be like on the phone and like passively listening and being distracted. When you're reading, you can't be distracted.
That's a good point.
You're actually reading.
Yeah.
So like the entirety of his marketing is written. Like he's like, I'm not on camera.
Yeah.
All of his courses, his entire courses are written.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Autoresponder Madness is entirely
Fully written thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's teaching you what he's doing while doing it with you.
It's interesting because straight away I'm like, I think that puts me off. But I don't know why.
So I've done courses before that are just written, and I didn't really mind because it's like,
You still learn.
as long as there's not fluff in there.
Well, he's teaching writing, so like,
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
makes sense.
it's almost like if you teach writing by video, you're a hypocrite, aren't you? So you've got to.
he's
kinda
teaching
has to.
writing by writing, and you're also observing the lesson in.
As he's writing.
It's very meta.
Yeah.
Like it's very in the real world as you're experiencing it.
I kind of have this like envy for something else we were talking about on the train down, which we nearly asked you before, but was to say for the podcast. So if you could, we're talking about like if you could be in the position of anyone on the internet, so like in the course space and the digital space, and not necessarily the person, but more like the way their business is run and the position they're in. There's something about guys like Andre Chaperon or like Ben Settle, they have this like super, super simple.
Yep.
And I know it with Ben Settle especially, it's very meta because he's selling daily email with daily email, and it's a course about writing daily email.
Yep.
And it works, obviously, but this idea of like you wake up, you write an email, done. I have courses off the back of it. So is there anyone that you think like I'd love to have, if I could start again, if it was all at zero and you could build something or you could build a model, is there anyone that, or like the assets that people have, like big YouTube channel, big podcast?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually like really admire info product businesses. So like
no coaching attached to it, just access.
And I think that's probably just because I've done coaching for so long.
Yeah.
The pieces of coaching that I love is when I'm free flowing, answering questions and supporting people. The elements of coaching that I don't like so much is maybe when I'm like in the weeds of having to use my skill set to do stuff. So I'm very much like a rescuer in my entire life. I have been my entire life. So if somebody needs an email, like if they ask me to critique an email, I'm not
Just
going to
give
go.
it here, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll critique it as I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if their ads aren't working, I'll jump in and I'll do their ads. That side, I still enjoy it. But the thing that I actually love most is speaking.
Right.
Just free flow speaking and problem solving by using my mind, essentially. The stuff that I love is, more than anything, is being able to run ads, have products being purchased and money flowing in, and having my information carry the lessons as opposed to me having to do it.
Deliver it. Yeah.
So, someone like Andre, like he sets up these little businesses and writes these pre-sale articles like in obscure niches that you would never even know it was him. So it's not personality based. Like I admire people who build a business that doesn't rely upon their personality or their presentation or them as the individual to make the money. I think there's a massive amount of stress and pressure on a coach who relies upon their talent to sell clients into their programs, as opposed to somebody who can set up marketing and bring customers in, even on the periphery, without it even knowing that it's them.
Yeah. I've definitely always found that like sitting behind a ads manager and running traffic to something that you aren't like delivering live really appealing.
Yeah.
But it's not like, I don't think it's because I'm attached to this, like, because I get to live on a beach and
No.
like, I still want to do work.
Like it's math and it's data and it's...
Yeah, it's like controllable and I can grow it. And
Yeah.
I know that what the person's getting on the other side of it is like recorded and prepared and the best version of that explanation. And if I'm tired or hungover, like that doesn't affect them. They
How
still get
often
it.
are you hungover?
More than you'd think.
Yeah.
It's,
Not really.
Rarely.
Like
I imagine.
less so now.
Yeah.
But I think because it's less often when it does happen, it's like a multi-day thing.
yeah.
But yeah.
I think there's people who go into a business because they want to be the Gary V celebrity type person, and then there's people who go into it because they want to be the Homer Simpson in the nuclear power plant, pressing all the buttons and just at the core of it all, like making little tweaks and things are kind of right. So
Homer Simpson's not the person
It's
I think
actually-
of.
well, yeah, maybe not. It's just the image.
Good,
that-
yeah.
It's a great question though, because I think I've just been thinking through logical, because actually what I love most is doing this.
Interesting.
So like I'm logicizing, if that's a word, what I was thinking like my business would like to be. But the reality is if I did like that, I've got the skill set and talent and ability to set it up that way. What I actually love and don't like, this isn't something I make money on, but it's something I will happily invest money into and spend money on. And I love doing it. So if there was a way for me to monetize this better than I do now,
you can productize that, and I suppose the passion for it carries through, doesn't it? Like it's to try and give an engaging talk about something that you don't care about is the audience will feel that.
exactly.
So
On that note, there was a guy, there's one time, like one troll that I've ever had that really stung me. Right? I was had a partnership with my old mentor, and it was in a completely new market for me with a new kind of offering. And you know what you were saying before, like when you see somebody who's talking about what they know and it's like so certain in them and you can see it, and then you have somebody who's kind of unsure. I was probably leaning towards the like, I don't have a ton of experience of teaching this, but I have an experience doing it. It's like building a consultant business as an example. I've done it 10 years now. I have more than enough knowledge to do so, but actually teaching it, never had much experience. Handful of like private people who would pay me. And this guy sent me a message one day saying, you have all of the talent and ability to be a Russell Brunson and the way in which you communicate, but there is something off in your energy that will prevent people from actually believing what you say. And
What a specific
is that
thing to criticize.
Yeah.
Is that a troll? Is that? I mean,
no,
that's
it's not a
very-
troll, but it was, and he was like, and I help entrepreneurs in this.
Oh,
space. No, but like,
here
no,
we
but,
go.
no, but this is why it stung,
Right.
because there was a piece of it that I actually felt was true,
Maybe
Yeah.
that's a copy paste message though,
potentially.
because everyone probably feels like that.
Yeah, imposter syndrome. But like,
He's Darren Brown.
we discussed about my personal journey over the last year and a half, and I think that's the piece that was missing before. Sometimes like having the logic but not the embodied like presence of that information, I think is the difference.
Congruence.
Yeah, like alignment in like your body is saying the same thing as that your mind is.
I wanted to ask you about that stuff because I saw something you talked about. I'm guessing part of the retreat as well, you were talking about relaxing your abdomen when you're talking with people.
Yeah.
There's a lot more body oriented and energy focused in the things that you're talking about. What was the retreat like?
Oh, Men Without Masters was amazing. They do podcasts in here with Jacob as well.
Okay.
And one of the biggest things that I had was like 5 days of complete presence with no phone and actual human to human interaction is something I don't think I've ever experienced before. Not probably since I was a child. Like
Since you had a phone, I imagine.
Yeah, you can go for dinner with a friend and you can put your phone out of the way and you can be that person, but can the other person? Or you can both decide to be that person for an hour, but the second that you leave, you're on your phone.
Yep.
And I think it was really interesting, like day 1, day 2, you'd see people like, I seen this thing on the end.
So
and they're
conditioned,
like,
isn't
fuck,
it?
my phone's
It's like the phantom vibration of like, oh no, oh yeah.
that was happening for like 5 days.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening was conversations weren't about what they'd seen or what they'd seen on the internet, or so many times, have you seen this thing? Have you seen this thing? Have you seen this thing? And it got to like real, authentic, interested conversations because you had no other option to be so. And then there's like a lot of intensity in that retreat, a lot of like connection. Stuff is like eye gazing and like real close communication, which was really difficult. And I remember one of the first days we were, talking about loss. Tell me about loss. And it's about like allowing grief as a gateway to open to the heart. And I was like, fuck, not another person. Like, I can't do this. Like, serious. It was so uncomfortable.
Right.
Like, you talk like a foot away, staring somebody in the eye.
Explaining deep feelings.
And that person would be like, tell me about loss of this. Tell me about, and they just keep, tell me about loss.
And are they in the program as well?
Yeah,
So, right.
yeah. So it's like one of the
So it's not like a facilitator.
No. It's
right.
the retreat people. And you'd move around the room. I don't want to give too much away because anybody who wants to lean into that, it's an amazing experience. But I just remember like the discomfort like in my body of like doing that with multiple people. Oh, not another person. It was so intense. But what it really brought to me was understanding like how much my body was resisting that intimacy and that connection and that communication. And how what I noticed in those moments was like how tense I was. And like how tight and how constricted my body was, and how we have vulnerability in our mind and we can speak vulnerability, but is our body vulnerable too? And the majority of people hold their belly in, they hold their stomach in because they don't want a big fat belly, for one. Especially women will notoriously suck this stomach in. But then number two, that tension is like, it's transpired through your energy at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That sounds awesome. Sounds like an intense experience. And I totally agree. I think the muscular body and the energetic and emotional body are linked. I think they're overlays of each other, and working with one can work with the other. I went on a stretching workshop for a weekend in London a couple of years ago, and during the hip stretches, multiple people were bursting into tears.
Yeah.
During the piriformis and glute stretch, there was someone like saying that he felt like something clicked with he had a rough relationship with his dad, or it's a crazy thing.
Well, do you know why? Like, I've actually gone down this rabbit hole. Like,
With the hip stuff
No
specifically?
trauma.
Ah, right.
So like we have embodied trauma, right? The body has a memory as the mind does. And before we have cognitive reasoning or language around like what trauma is, the body will have experienced it already. And so for example, when we go to ride a bike, we don't think, put your foot on the pedal and pedal. The body remembers how to ride the bike, right? So we have traumatic experiences through childhood, and it could be something innocent and really simple, like in school, like you get embarrassed, your body responds and your nervous system responds in a certain
Locks
way,
it in.
and it's locked in, but you don't have the capability as a child to understand what that is or to rationalize or reframe it. And so then patterns in your life will continually reflect that experience back to you, and then you'll begin to experience it again. The moment you'll feel anxiety, you'll feel fear, you'll feel a lack of confidence, and you don't really know why. And we try to attach story to it, but actually the story we attach in the moment has nothing to do with the root of it. It's embodied trauma. It's trapped in our body. And so part of the journey of releasing trauma is to go into the body through breath work, through stretching, mobility, and open the body, open the heart again, soften the belly, like let go of tension. Because that's when we start to move trauma through the body completely.
It's allowing that stress cycle to complete.
Yeah.
If you see an animal that's been tranquilized, so that when they shoot a polar bear with a tranquilizer dart, when it comes to, it shakes, and it's just allowing that stress to discharge to complete the stress cycle. Otherwise, what humans do is, it's not socially appropriate to do that or whatever, so they just lock it in.
Yeah.
And then every time something that reflects that stimulus once again, the same muscular tension pattern reappears, the body adopts the same postures, the same defensive positions and tension patterns. And as you say, like, I guess the only way is not to try and fix it from neck up, but to go into the body and deal with it.
I was talking about, I have an incredible guy, Matt Gunn, he will be on the show as well. And he does breath work, trauma release practitioner. He's a psychotherapist as well. And he said the gap for him, he'd done years of psychotherapy, but he missed the embodiment stuff. So he missed the breath work, he missed the movement. He actually taught me a thing like shaking, like you stand and you basically shake through your knees, and you basically you just move an energy out of your body. And so many people experience anxiety and they think it's because of a thing, but they have no actual recollection. Like they don't know. They're feeling anxiety, and just let go of the story. Like, I am experiencing anxiety in the moment. Be curious about it. When was the first time that I felt this emotion? Because that's usually the root of it. Like, when was the first time that I can remember feeling this way? Or where else in my life have I experienced this emotion and feeling right now? And it's that curiosity that starts to bridge gaps. And then you can start to go, okay, when I was 7 years old and this thing happened to me, this is how I felt. But I didn't have the logic or understanding to realize that it doesn't mean it's about me.
It was just uncomfortable at the time.
Yeah.
I think with certain types of meditation, when you're just looking for body sensations and you feel I think probably every person who runs their own business has this, where you wake up in the morning and there is this underlying oh shit,
anxiety.
And you can't place on why. There's nothing happening today, nothing happened yesterday, but there's still this and you sit and just meditate through that, and you realize that all that actually is this sensation here. And you're and that sensation here happens.
You create a story
and then that triggers this string of mental talk and then images, and you think that is you, so you just 20 minutes in, and you're fuck, all that is just this, then words, then an image, and if I just don't attach to it, then it just vanishes.
Exactly.
And it's so but again, if you don't have that, if you don't take the time to look at it like that, it just takes your whole day.
Yeah. And there's this thing called suspicion of self, right? And suspicion of self is an early belief that we've adopted that we then use the outside world to reaffirm about ourselves. And so if we have a suspicion of self that we're not good enough, that we are, a bad person, or we're not attractive, or we're not lovable, whatever that is, right? We have a very early belief about ourselves that's often unconscious. For some people, they'd be like, I know it. This is what it is. For other people, it takes some uncovering. It's been part of my journey over the last year and a half of figuring this stuff out. And what will happen is situations in our life will happen that really reflect that suspicion of self. And then we almost find and set up these instances in our life before they ever come true to reaffirm what we already believe about ourselves. So that entrepreneurial anxiety when we wake up in the morning, business is failing. That's already set in motion. Our expectation is that whatever we do ever will never be successful. So then we use the outside world of our business to be okay, that's just another example of me not being successful in life. It's another example of failure here. This is normal to me. This is where I feel at myself because I'm used to this feeling. And then we will use that often as a propellant to then take action also. And it's like a dirty energy. It's not a clean energy.
Yeah, it's why I think something that triggers me is I get jealous of seeing people who are just delusionally back themselves in spite of not having any, because you think, they're not having to deal with any of this internal chatter because they're just too stupid to have the kind of cyclical self-doubts and thoughts and what, but it works, and actually there's something to be learned from them, and that's why it triggers me.
And I'd say probably the reality of that is it's actually the opposite. that is them, like, that is their process of likely operating from a wound and projecting out to the world that I'm not a scared animal. Do you get me?
Yeah.
Like if an animal is like afraid, or it's like it's maimed or whatever, and like it's almost on the attack.
Oh,
right?
I see. Well, they're like sort of puffing the chest out and being
exactly
like,
right. So like it's not that in itself. If it's coming from a place that it doesn't feel authentic or like integral or whatever, then it's often, that can often be driven from somewhere deep too, like a wound.
It's like their armor of that situation.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that like we speak about this a lot, that I think moving from employee to business owner, I have this analogy in my mind of like, if there's a storm, the employee's like a mile under the sea. And like, you might be told like, fuck, there's a storm up there, but you're not necessarily experiencing it.
Yep.
And the business owner's like on the little rickety dinghy on the waves, like, fuck, like, the boat's gonna sink. Like, I'm running. And like, it's a really interesting, like the stuff we were talking about before, like the stuff that triggers you is just mirrors of your own internal thoughts. And I think just the day-to-day of dealing with customers, dealing with trolls, dealing with leads who ghost you, content, people criticize it, having to put yourself out there, getting criticized. Like there's no like faster way, I don't think, to expose yourself to all these like, I'm not good enough. I'm shit at that. I can't do this. Stuff that you think you're good at actually doesn't work. And all these like, it's a constant evolving pattern of exposing yourself to more and more stuff, more than I think anything else. Business
is the number one self-development arena of anything, I think. I think everybody has like, I was talking about gym anxiety with somebody. I think I mentioned this on the podcast this morning. And gym anxiety is nothing but anxiety that's amplified by the gym. Right? So you already experience this anxiety, but like the gym becomes such a strong mirror for that, where like every piece of criticism, judgment, self-doubt, like all just in one big fucking fuck show. Like it's true, right? Like you're putting yourself into a place where it's just like, yep, this is every little wound and trigger that I have all in one place.
And there's mirrors everywhere.
There are people in better shape than you. There are more attractive people than you. There's fucking machines that you don't know how to use, or like all your insecurities, doubts, fears, worries in one set.
My deadlift's not big enough.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've never really thought about it like that, actually, because I think you go to the gym for long enough and you do forget like what day one was like.
Yeah, you're the person triggering someone else.
Yeah. And not like, and you're like, you've actually got your headphones in thinking about your session.
Yep.
But just by being there and like lifting more than them or looking better than them or whatever, you are their problem.
And that's also a great insight into, if you have yourself in the world fully as you are, the world will orientate itself around you.
Yeah.
And that orientation often means that people will fall off because you do trigger them by being yourself. That people will disappear because you have boundaries and you're strong and you're centered in where you're at. And that's just like, you're doing you, but you're affecting the outer world.
Anyone who's got into shape has experienced skinny shaming or fit shaming from people who unwittingly are triggered by your change, your improvement. And it's the kind of crabs in the bucket thing, isn't it? But it's nothing to do with you. It's just that they see you as a representation or as a mirror of the improvements that they failed to make.
I've got a great example of this. Friend Scano from Liverpool, fought in the UFC in the past. He's in here often. I've spoke about multiple times on the show. We were doing on the retreat like cold water in a lake, and it was like -6, fucking freezing. 6 o'clock in the morning. We're doing this hike through like the hills, and we get to this place, and he'd done Wim Hof's retreat in Poland. And so we got there, and like instantly he was like, all right, everybody, like, let's do the horse stance. He was like, hoo, ha, hoo, ha. And he got the whole group like engaging in this. Like, fuck, why did I not think of that? Like, like it like triggered me in the moment of like his leadership so strong. And I'm used to being that person in a group. And it sat with me all day, like the weight of it. And like, I was like, he's somebody that I'd seen online before. I'd seen him on Instagram and like 15, 16,000 followers, and he shares these videos and everyone giving him all this love. And I'm like, I'm fucking as smart as him. Like, why haven't I got all these followers? And he like really fucking trigger me, all to the point at which I knew he had value. I knew he was valuable. He was interested in martial arts, he did jiu-jitsu, and I didn't follow him. even though he was in circles with friends, because I was so triggered by him. So after
I
that
went
day,
over and I punched him.
yeah, and he's the one person that probably would never fight ever. If I had any kind of beef with him, I'd squash it fast.
Just apologize.
Yeah. And I remember like that day it just sat with me so heavy. I'm like, wow, like I really fucking judged this person like massively, and like said more about me than it did about him.
It's almost
And, like,
annoying when
he's
you meet someone
showing
like
up.
that.
Yeah.
And they're just lovely.
Yeah.
And you're like, why aren't you a dickhead? Like that would have
just
made things so much easier.
Showing pieces of me that I wasn't given to the world. Like there's highlighting so many pieces of me that I had in me, but I wasn't sharing with the world. So we were sharing this house, and it was like 10:30. Just had a long day. I like knocked on his door and I'm like, listen, Mark, just wanted to say that your leadership today was incredible. Really admired how you handled the group this morning. And I just wanted to let you know that you used to trigger me on social media, and it's largely because you're displaying things that I know I have inside of me, and you just you've given me permission to own that like piece of me.
Well done for saying, you knocked on his door at 10:30 p.m.
Yeah, and told him that. And I was like,
and he was like, I'm in the middle of a wank actually. Like,
yeah, fuck's sake. And it was like a really profound moment for me, because what it allowed me to do through the days of the retreat was to understand that it was more like unclaimed pieces of me that was like so triggering to me. It would show like very clearly like what I wasn't doing, and someone else was doing it with excellence. And I just observed him over the days, and I'm like I can see why his routines, his diligence, his structure, like, and I just admired so much of it. And I'm like, the only way I can do this, I just got out of the shower. The only way I can do this is like actually knock on his door and tell him.
Straight out of the shower. That's a really courageous thing to do as well.
Yeah, I was
like
just
how did he respond to it?
Oh, he was just giving me a big hug, and he was like, I appreciate that so much. And he was like, the same, like feel the same. Like, so funny.
Well, he feels the same about other people.
Towards me.
Oh, right.
Like, I guess both of us were like two very smart, leadership driven people, and
wow.
like
So
highlighted in
he
each
felt
other.
the same
Same
about
trigger.
Yeah.
And he wrote me a little note in the morning, still got it, and like slid it under my door. So when I woke up, I had that note, and it was just such a like, honestly, you know, moments in your life when you think like that changed everything. That was like one of those moments.
Very cool.
Because now I will go into that discomfort and acknowledge that brilliance in others, because that's me claiming that inside of myself, knowing that if you spot it, you've got it. You know that you have it inside of yourself. So if you can see it in someone else, you have it in yourself. And by expressing that, you're actually claiming it and bringing it back home.
I think it's a bit, if you're trying to build a brand, or like, as you say, like be a leader in something, and you see, it's so hard when you see someone else like getting credit for an idea that you know you have as well, that you don't talk about.
Yeah.
It's so hard to be like, oh yeah, great, I really agree, well done.
Yeah.
When you're like, fuck, like if only I'd shared that 6 months ago when I thought about it or whatever.
But equally, it's the piece of acknowledging that and recognizing it and being, okay, there is enough for everybody. There is an abundance here. Like it's we're waiting for abundance to feel abundant, right? We're waiting for it to show up before we feel that way, but we have to feel that way before it will ever show up.
For it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stumped.
Very good.
Yeah.
This just came to mind, but it's not fully related. It was
Not gay porn again.
It's not gay porn.
No.
I was working on a stroke ward last year, and this woman had come in with a severe stroke, like debilitating, possibly fatal. Like the people tend not to recover very well from that stuff. 93 years old. Her husband had come in, and I had to have a chat with him in the side room, and I was like, so your wife's had this stroke, it's quite severe. I think you need to know about the next steps and the severity of this. And he was like, we've been married for 67 years and it's our 68th anniversary on Friday. And I was like, oh God. And then that's what it was. It was when you busy and holding tension. So I was on a very busy on-call shift, just being hammered by calls and tasks and things to do. And I got a call on the Friday. Hi, can you come and confirm a death, please? Came over, opened the curtains, and it was that woman. And so you go through the process, and because you're just being slammed on these kind of shifts, you're not really taking to heart the kind of impact of this stuff. So you listen to the heart sound, the absence of heart sounds and chest, and you check for response and pupil response and all that stuff. And then when I pulled down the sheet, there was a card on a chest that said "Happy Anniversary to my lifelong love," and it's just like, oh god, and just like immediately, just absolute gut punch. Instantly realized that all of the tensions and kind of bitty world tasks that you're dealing with are actually like someone's just died here, and that's the end of a very long marriage. And it just made everything seem so frivolous.
Yeah.
Just take a moment and like just choke back the tears and be like, oh, right, on to the next job.
It's so hard though, right? Like to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, and like you almost have to normalize it and just like, get rid of the compassion or empathy or.
Well, this is it. Like, and it has to go in somewhere, but you're too busy to process it to do anything with it. You've got another 7 hours left of your shift or whatever, so on you go. And I do think this it goes somewhere. You have to have a practice to.
Well, yeah, it's like it's embodied trauma. Like I don't, man, like how many dead bodies have I seen in my life? Few, if any. Like you've probably dealt with that on an extreme, multiple daily. Like
You become numb to it.
Which
is it's bad because
it's traumatic in itself, right? Like at some point it's gonna, like fuck.
Like does that like the following day or like that night when you get home hit you or not? Or
Like sometimes if you get a minute to sit.
Yeah.
It's in the space between. I mean that fully knocked me out of my flow, and just
I can imagine, man.
Yeah,
I think out of all the stories you've told me, I think that's the saddest one.
And
oh yeah,
this is so important, and like how much that little piece of information like creates human context around the rest of it. Like had you not have had that piece of information, it probably wouldn't have like hit you the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Just
it's almost pre-framed to you.
seeing that card.
Specifically the anniversary on that specific day, the fact to be married 68 years.
She'd obviously held on. She was semi-conscious. He would come in every day and hold her hand and talk to her and stuff. And then she'd obviously held on until the anniversary day, despite not being conscious. There was something about that.
Yeah.
And then having to take her to the morgue and like when you pull out the thing, he wanted her to be buried with the card. But yeah, I don't know what the lesson is from that. I guess it's stopping and smelling the roses and not being so caught up with the seeing confirm a death as, oh, that's another task on the list. That's another job to do.
Yeah. I think it's as well, like it's opening your heart. I think naturally in that career, you'd have to close your heart. Like you couldn't experience that emotion like every single time you do it.
It would be crippling.
It'd be highly impossible to live life.
It's why people see doctors as kind of rods.
Yeah.
Because like there isn't trying to go through that job with a fully soft body and open heart. It would be
so difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially
Unless
delivering like, oh, you're going to die. Like that kind of information to people is like,
because you can't cry in it. Like I've occasionally come close if you have to chat to a family at 2 a.m. and you sit with them in a side room and you have to, and like sometimes the energy is contagious and you feel yourself welling up and you're like, well, this is not appropriate for me to express any emotion.
You're like you're the certainty.
Yeah.
You have the answers, you have the information. If you're crying, like fuck, like who do I turn to then?
But like how does this translate into our life? Because that's very like a very, how do I say this without pissing people off? It's a very manly thing, like to shut down your own emotion, to get on with things, to not cry, never show your weakness, don't open up. And I think that's a major problem in the world. Like what somebody's family is dying, and because I'm a doctor, I'm not allowed to feel the emotion of that or the weight of it. Like I shouldn't feel that. Like I've got to be strong and stern and stoic because it's inappropriate for a doctor to feel emotion and show emotion. Like it's very against human nature.
Yeah.
It's hugely like societal to be like, it's the bureaucracy of society that really pisses me off like that. Well, no, like, you know, I mentioned Matt. Matt's been such an amazing part of my life. And there were times when like I've really fucking been bawling my eyes out, crying my eyes out. And like, he's there with me. Like he feels the emotion. He's tearing up himself. And there's nothing more, in my opinion, more empowering or more permission-based than being like, yeah, this is weighty. This is emotional. And having somebody that goes to that depth with you, I think is powerful.
The programming runs deep, you know, like even the kind of 15-year-old response of like, oh, I'm not gay, like that's not it. But like that, why is that a problem? You know, why is that it? But it's just patterns that we've taken on, like, and therefore you're not supposed to express emotion, express vulnerability.
Well, and this is very deep, but like there are things that we believe about the world that are not part of our life. So it's generationally DNA ingrained into our fabric of our family fabric, our family construct. So my therapist was actually sharing with me, Maria, she was saying she didn't trust men. That was her thing. Like, men leave. Her family grew up in Portugal in a little fishing village, and the men would go to sea and they would die. Like, they would die at sea. Which was like, these, you know, nobody stopped to question this. Just men disappear in our lives, whether it was from whatever reason, not just leaving, but actually dying. She's like, nobody ever stopped to question it. For 900 years from this little village, this would happen. And so it was passed down without, it was unspoken. It wasn't a conscious conversation. It was unspoken belief that we just hold, and our families have it. Like, it's passed to us.
That becomes an emotion. That becomes like, that's what men are.
Feel stuff. Like, every one of us on the planet feel things today that might not even be our own stuff. It's like generations back. But it's because we have, you know, two memories. We have body and we have mind. At least we have cognitive reasoning with our mind, but our body senses and feels so much. And we pick up on so much, and we remember so many things, and it's taught to us without us even having any conscious awareness of it. Yeah.
And we shut ourselves off from it at the same time. And
It's something from a chat with you and Guy, Yusef's flatmate, who's also a doctor. Both of you guys really into meditation and those sorts of practices. And I think something like that comes up in a conversation with both of you is having like a practice like that, whether it be meditation or yoga or something, is almost like this training and preparation for the fact that like throughout the rest of your life, you're just going to experience some terrible, like personal illness, family illness, loss, really challenging situations. And if you just are in like default mode, suppress that, don't deal with that, then like the people around you who depend on you to be in that situation with them, or you processing that as it's happening to you, you just have a less and less chance of being able to deal with it. Versus like almost this, it's like a preparation for, if I can't sit with myself for 20 minutes, half an hour, then like what chance have I got when
like we were talking about the whole porn thing as well. Like, if you can't sit with an uncomfortable emotion for a period of time and you have to release it in some way, shape or form, whether it be porn or like masturbation, whatever it is, like that doesn't give us much chance of actually processing something. We're masking, distracting, we're moving away from it very quickly because it's very uncomfortable. Like, our sexual energy is our most powerful energy that we have. It's our creation force, right? It's life's creation force. And sometimes like that power, we've all had that energy in us where it becomes really difficult to contain, and we just let it go because it's uncomfortable to sit with that power, right?
Well, I feel like there's that, like in society, there's that like sedation mode for everything. So like boredom, phone, sexual energy, porn, stress, alcohol, drugs.
Everything's on instant access as well. Uber Eats, Amazon Prime, whatever. Like
I feel this way. Shit, better get out of that. Better deal with that somehow. Like what's the quickest like dopamine hit I can get to, but I don't know. Maybe we're just fucked.
We're all fucked.
What a way to end.
Right on time.
Maybe we're all fucked.
That could be a good name for the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe we're just fucked.
Yeah.
Nice optimistic title for the podcast. Chris, it's been a pleasure.
It's been awesome.
It has, man. Thank you for having us.
I feel like we could go for another 2 hours.
Same.
Yeah.
Except we've got a steak dinner waiting for us.
Oh
do.
man. Well, let's do part 2 at some point.
Oh,
Definitely.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Love to. Maybe come in here and I'll return the favor on your show.
Oh yeah, do come
man.
up. Always
Absolutely.
welcome.
Yeah.
4-hour slot next time.
Yeah. Let's
Fine.
do it.
Definitely, man.
Thank
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.
Pleasure.